Today on Inspired Money.
And meanwhile, we look at things like statistics showing 70% of people are unhappy with their job. They don't feel like they have autonomy. They're completely stressed out. Divorce rates skyrocketing because of money fights and money problems. So we're looking at all of these problems going wrong on one side, this massive opportunity on the other side, and there's this gigantic gap. And there's really no reason for that gap to exist.
This is episode 70 with entrepreneur and founder of sixfiguregrind.com, Kevin Michael Geary. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to put money in a positive light to inspire ourselves to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together make the world a better place. Thank you for joining me on this mission. Today we're talking to Kevin Geary, who launched sixfiguregrind.com, where he educates people on entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial mindset, and how to build an online lifestyle business. Kevin also hosts the Six Figure Grind podcast, where he discusses his successes and failures, shares wisdom, and offers advice on building a business. In this episode, you'll learn why Kevin ditched his brick and mortar business to create an online business, why Kevin thinks that you and I and everyone is an entrepreneur, and then how to get started if you're interested in starting an online business, and is being an entrepreneur risky? That and a whole lot more. Now let's get inspired with Kevin Michael Geary. Kevin, welcome to Inspired Money. It's so great to have you on the show.
Hey, Andy, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
So my earliest childhood memory of money is it's not one memory. It's an ongoing thing. The feeling of just not having my own, like this reliance on my parents to buy things, having to ask them permission, having to try to convince them to purchase things that I wanted, and having to rely on them and other people. And, as I got older, in the back of my mind, I always had this, well, not even in my mind, my entire being was like, I had this entrepreneurial spirit. And from the time I was able to sell lemonade, do anything that I could do to get money, I was doing it. And I was very independent. My parents were not entrepreneurial minded, so I don't really remember them providing a lot of insight or education around business or money or anything like that. It was kind of a process of me figuring out everything on my own. Of course, they were supportive with everything that I was doing, but that was my earliest memory. It's just like I hate relying on other people. I don't want to continue to ask permission. I don't want to continue to be told no on a lot of things that I want. I don't want to have those limitations. I want to take this matter into my own hands. I want to find as many ways as I possibly can to get money for myself.
You sound super motivated. As a kid, what do you consider as your first real business?
The first thing that I remember was selling Nintendo cartridges on the curb. We lived in apartments at that time. We had just moved not long before that from Florida. I was probably in elementary school. I'm terrible with years and dates and all of that stuff, but I'm just going off of what I think I remember. But I do remember sitting on a stool on the street corner with a box of Nintendo cartridges, selling those to other kids in the complex. And parents who, they'd come along and maybe buy one, I guess, as a gift or something. I don't know. But that was the first time that I was actually selling physical goods, aside from just like that typical, like, hey, let's make a lemonade stand or something. That was my first foray into going into my house and like, all right, where, like, I need to establish a product here. What can I sell people? And I had this huge collection of Nintendo games, and that became the first venture.
Cool. That sounds really cool. Today, you are running more than one successful online lifestyle business. I'd like to dig a little bit into that and really how you transitioned from sort of a more traditional brick and mortar business to what you're doing today.
Yeah, so 2008 is the year that I opened a brick and mortar business with a partner. It was a martial arts studio. And it was probably one of the worst times, as everybody knows, to open a business, especially a brick and mortar business. But we were able to make it through that rough economic period. The business did very, very well. But towards the end of it, I would say towards 2012-ish, I really started to get the itch to get out of that business, mainly because I really did not like the direction that specific sector of the martial arts industry was headed. So I taught Olympic Taekwondo, and Taekwondo kind of gets lumped in with the karates of the world, and Taekwondo in general kind of follows the same business model as the karate studios that I think everybody refers to as McDojos, where they're just really selling belts. And I really wanted to focus on quality. I wanted to focus on we had mostly kids as our students. We did have adults too, but it was mainly a studio for kids, and it was a family-oriented studio. And so I wanted to make the kids earn it, and I wanted to really focus on being one of the only schools that was focused on quality. My business partner kind of had other plans. It was more like, no, it's just, the bottom line. That's what really matters here. It's not really, just they want the belts, to sell them the belts kind of thing. And that's really what the whole entire industry was doing. And I felt like it really undermined what we were doing, what we were trying to accomplish, what this whole martial arts thing was all about. And I didn't really see a way to stop it in that environment. So I decided that I needed to start looking for a way out. Now, in 2012, my first daughter was also born as well. And leaving her at home to go to this job was something that to me felt unacceptable. Like I didn't want to have to do that. I didn't like being tied to a location. I hated being tied to a schedule. And I had a lot of experience in the online space. I had built websites since I was 12 or 13. I'm very technically minded. So when I started thinking about alternatives to this brick and mortar business, I knew I didn't want to go get a job. I wanted to continue being an entrepreneur. I wanted to continue building brands and businesses, but I did not want to create another location to tie myself to. I didn't want to create another schedule to tie myself to. And I wanted more ability to scale with less risk. I mean, there's a lot of risk in building a brick and mortar businesses. There's very expensive leases. There's inventory. Like there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. And there's a lot of stuff that's just very expensive to maintain. And so I started taking a really hard look at the idea of building an online business, a completely online business. And so that's what I eventually transitioned to in 2013. I started my first online business January of 2013, exited the other business, that brick and mortar business, by August of 2013 and never looked back. And I've been supporting myself and my family of 5 now completely online since then.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. What did the process look like for you when you were making that transition as far as figuring out what your first online business would be?
So I actually based my first online business off of a personal experience. So in 2009, I was about 225 pounds. I was a borderline diabetic. I had high blood pressure, even though I was a martial arts studio, which I also, when I tell the story, I tell the aspects of it as like, I felt like a fraud. Like I was, telling my students, hey, you need to eat well, you need to train consistently. I wasn't training consistently. I wasn't eating well. And that's why I was 225 pounds with high blood pressure and borderline diabetes. And I did, in 2009, decide to really get serious about doing that. I made big changes, and the catalyst for that was going to a physical where my doctor was like, look, this is going to turn into full-blown, you're going to be a type 2 diabetic. You're going to probably develop complications sooner rather than, like, you need to get a handle on this stuff. Of course, he didn't know what I was supposed to do, other than, like, he was just like, eat less and move more, like the traditional typical advice. And I had tried that. The reason I was that way is because I had given up in a way. Like, I had spent years and years and years struggling with my weight, struggling with my health, following traditional advice of, like, just slash calories and just exercise like crazy. And I would always lose weight and start to make a lot of progress. And then I would completely fall off the wagon because what I was doing was just not sustainable. And so in 2009, I came across the real food movement and switched to the idea of doing functional fitness instead of just lots and lots of cardio and quantity-based fitness. And I started looking at things like my sleep, and I started looking at gut health, and I really turned everything around very, very quickly. I went from 225 pounds with all, like, these health complications to 175 pounds and no health complications in like 10 or 11 months. It was a very fast turnaround, and I was able to maintain that fairly well. And so when I decided, like, all right, what am I going to transition to? When I was looking at building this online business, it was like, let me use that story. Let me use what I learned. And by the way, it was like the perfect, like, running a martial arts studio is almost perfect way to kick that off, because the parents of the students got to watch me go through that transformation. They were already asking me, like, hey, what did you do? Like, how did you accomplish this? And, like, can you like guide me? Can you tell me what you did? And so it was really them, asking those questions and asking for help that prompted me to be like, wow, like, this could really make an impact in people's lives. Like, I can, teach them what I did, what I know about that process. And we'll see if they can get the same results. And they did. And so, that became my first brand online.
So the Rebooted Body was born.
Yeah, Rebooted Body was born at that time. And it just took off. It really just took off. I started a podcast with that brand, I think, and at that time in 2013, podcasts were kind of really emerging onto the scene, but there also wasn't a ton of competition like there is today. And so that was a big part of it. I was really good at writing and SEO. And so I got a bunch of articles established on Google, very high rankings, getting a lot of organic traffic. That helped a lot. So, really it went from zero. It went from nothing exists around this brand at all in January to a full-time income by August. And like I said, I've branched out since then, and I really have a much bigger vision for the impact that I want to have in the world. I think that having an impact on people's health is amazing, but what I do now goes well beyond that, I feel. And this is what I do now with Six Figure Grind is really that's 100% my passion.
So tell me, does Rebooted Body continue? Is what you're doing, like, apply what you learned from Rebooted Body as running an online lifestyle business and then doing it again?
So what I did with and what I'm doing with Rebooted Body is a classic lifestyle business. So there is no intention to scale it to be a really big health and fitness brand or anything like that. It does what it does, and the goal is to maintain that and maintain the quality of what we offer at Rebooted Body. I'm building out a team to basically let that business continue to run without me. And I'm focusing now on the Six Figure Grind side of things and the impact that I want to make with Six Figure Grind. So Rebooted Body right now is, in a way, it's in my rear view mirror. And I don't want to get rid of it. I still want to be in the trenches. So there's a big, Six Figure Grind obviously is teaching people how to build online lifestyle businesses. And one of the things that I hate about the online marketing / make money online niche is that a lot of the players in the niche don't seem to have ever done anything outside of this niche. Like, they get successful by teaching other people, or giving them their theories really on how to be successful. And they've never built a business outside of that niche. And so I feel like having Rebooted Body, keeping Rebooted Body around, staying in the trenches in a lot of ways with Rebooted Body lends a lot more credibility, because I've built a successful online lifestyle business in a completely separate niche, and I still operate it, and I still am in the trenches with it. I'm still learning lessons from it every single month that goes by. And so I'm not just here saying, hey, let me teach you how to make money online, and that's how I'm going to make money, is by teaching you how to make money, right? Well, that it feels like that's what everybody's doing, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, before we discuss what you're doing now with Six Figure Grind, can we go back to when you started Rebooted Body? You have the skills for building the website. You started the podcast. You have the blog. How did you decide how you would start to monetize? And it sounded like at the very beginning, you started small. You had very small goals.
Yeah, I mean, I had a program outline, because before I ever launched Rebooted Body, before it was ever a thing, before there was ever a website, those parents that were saying, hey, can you help me? Can you show me what you did? I actually sat down and developed an outline of how they should approach this for themselves. And I asked them if they wanted me to lead them through it as a group thing. And they were all like, absolutely, please do that for us, right? So I said, okay, here's the outline we're going to follow. Here's how much I want to charge you, because it's going to take, time on my side of things, obviously. And so, are you willing to do that? And they said yes. And I ended up getting 16 people. So it was 8 couples, actually. I felt at that time look, if you can get your spouse on board, I think you're going to be a lot more successful than if, it's one person in your household doing it and the other person's just not on board. So we managed to get 8 couples who are in it together, and I led them through that first group experience, and they got really great results. And that was the kind of that was the proof of the model. And so the monetization of the online version of that was very simple. It was, how do we take this group experience that we just created and make it online in an evergreen format so that anybody in the world can sign up for it and follow it and do it and get support inside of it. And so that's exactly how we monetized from, I wouldn't say day one, obviously, creating the website, creating some content. I think it was March when we actually launched the online program, and then took off from there. That online program still exists. Of course, it's on version 5 now. It's going to be completely revamped 5 separate times, but it's still called the same thing. It's still, the same basic format.
So it's a course that I could take for that tuition.
Yeah, absolutely. So you pay once, you own access to the course for life. And so you're able to go through it as many times as you would like. It's now a 90-day course. And it has, people have just been crushing it with that course. So,
oh, that's great. So many of us need help with better health and physical fitness. But you were able to achieve what you wanted to, in that by starting the online business, you were freeing yourself from being location dependent. Mm-hmm. And because it's evergreen content, you're freeing yourself up for time. Right? You have more time freedom.
Right.
Is that how Six Figure Grind was born?
Let's start kind of at the foundation of the impact and the opportunity that I see, and the reason I started Six Figure Grind. When I told my partner I'm out and I exited that brick and mortar business in 2013, I got a taste of, and since then been living that life, of not having a location that I have to be at, not having a schedule that I have to follow, and being able to completely support myself and my family online. When we want to take a vacation, it's not even a vacation, and we just go somewhere. It's not like everybody, I'm not vacating from anything. It's just my life. Anytime we want to go somewhere, we're able to go. We can decide how long we want to stay. We come back whenever we want to. And there's really no limitations. It is the ultimate freedom. And it struck me at some point, I don't know when the exact point was between August of 2013 and now, but it really struck me that this is the ultimate freedom. But not only that, we are really the first generation to have that at our fingertips. And I feel like not enough people, number one, know about this opportunity or know how achievable this opportunity actually is. And certainly there aren't near enough people pursuing it or taking advantage of it. And meanwhile, we look at things like statistics showing 70% of people are unhappy with their job. They don't feel like they have autonomy. They're completely stressed out. Divorce rates skyrocketing because of money fights and money problems. So we're looking at all of these problems going wrong on one side, this massive opportunity on the other side, and there's this gigantic gap. And there's really no reason for that gap to exist. And so sixfiguregrind.com is really focused on helping more people achieve that ultimate freedom. There's no reason for the amount of people that currently exist who are location dependent and schedule dependent and, financially struggling. There's no reason for that. All they need is a way to bridge the gap. And so Six Figure Grind is the catalyst for doing that. Not just teaching them how to do it, but inspiring and motivating them and supporting them in their journey of accomplishing that.
This concept can apply to anybody of any age. Like when you create Six Figure Grind, are you trying to think of the college student or somebody in their 20s who can create a business? But then on the other end of that, there are like 57-year-olds who are worried about being laid off from their corporate job, and it could apply to them too. Like, who do you consider your core audience?
I consider my core audience the people who get it. The people who, when they hear the opportunity, they understand the significance of it. And when I talked about impact earlier, I said it's really great to impact people's health, to turn their health around. But in working with people at Rebooted Body, I can tell you this firsthand, that I will transform people's health. I really can't transform their health completely because they still have a magnificent amount of stress in their life as it relates to their job and to their money. And that's not something we change or influence at Rebooted Body because we're focused on the obvious health stuff, right? Like, how's your nutrition? How's your sleep? How's your exercise? Right? How's all this going on? Okay. But if you're so stressed about money and you're so stressed about working this job that you feel like is sucking the soul out of you, that stress is more destructive to your health than anything else you've been doing. Like, it's not the McDonald's that's necessarily killing people out there. It's not, not exercising enough that's necessarily killing people out there. The massive amount of stress that comes from unfulfillment in life and money and relationships going wrong because of these other two things going wrong in a lot of cases, that does untold damage to people's health.
Coming up, we talk about who's an entrepreneur. Can anyone create and run a business? Tips for getting started and more. But first, Six Figure Grind impacts health in ways that the Rebooted Body could not.
And so when I look at Six Figure Grind, it's like, wow, like I can take that piece of the puzzle, right? Because another problem with people's health is that, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat healthy. I don't have enough money to eat healthy. I don't like the money thing and the fulfillment thing are like the root cause of what's going wrong in most people's lives. And if you fix that, if you have an unlimited amount of time and flexibility and freedom, you have everything you need to also be physically healthy if that's a concern to you or if that's a desire for you, right? So it's, in one capacity, you get really tired of like knowing how to transform people's health, but then there's these obstacles of, I don't have time to do that. I don't have enough money to do that. But with Six Figure Grind, I feel like this is the ultimate freedom, like getting that stress out of people's lives and directing their time and attention and their energy towards something they're really passionate about, their zone of genius where they can go off and make an impact in other people's lives. This is why I said Six Figure Grind. The work that I'm doing there is the biggest impact I think that I can make in people's lives.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/070. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Kevin or things mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. I want to share a MarketWatch article that I read today. The headline is, "Do Americans Marry for Love or Money? Finally an Answer." This article is based on research by Merrill Edge, who polled more than 1,000 people aged 18 to 40 with investable assets between $20,000 and $250,000 to learn more about our relationships with finance and romance. So does the size of your partner's bank account matter? Here are some highlights. 56% of Americans say that they want a partner who provides financial security more than head over heels love. The sentiment was pretty equal comparing both men and women. It was 54% of men and 57% of women. And then if you're Gen Z, that is born between 1996 and 2010, you are the true romantics. This was the only cohort to choose love, 54% over money. Perhaps not surprising to you who listens to this podcast, even though respondents want partners with a certain socioeconomic status, they said that they remained coy about their own finances. They ranked nearly all major relationship milestones, including meeting their prospective in-laws, being intimate, traveling together, and discussing politics, all of those things ahead of discussing their finances. They said that they postpone the money talk with their significant others, especially when the topic is debt, salary, investments, and spending habits. Of course, one of the recurring themes here at Inspired Money is to talk about money, have those financial discussions. Another theme here is happiness and fulfillment in relation to money. The research cited in this article says that marriages of wealthier couples don't necessarily last longer than those who earn less. In fact, the more you spend on a wedding ceremony, the shorter the marriage, according to one survey of 3,000 couples released in 2014 by two professors at Emory University. Couples who spend $20,000 on their wedding are 46% more likely than average to get divorced. That risk falls to 29%, higher than average for those who spend $10,000 to $20,000. So talk about money. Don't blow all of your money on your wedding. That sounds like pretty solid advice to me. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. What's your biggest financial challenge right now? Do you need help setting up an IRA, Roth IRA, or maybe a retirement account? We can help. Email me at awang@runnymede.com. That's RUNNYMEDE.com. Or go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. I'd love to hear from you. We can chat, do a short call, and point you in the right direction. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. An important component of this is, I think, a willingness to be an entrepreneur. You mentioned that you didn't really have entrepreneurs in your family, but you've been entrepreneurial ever since you were really young. For all the Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, how do they need to think differently to change their situation and take advantage of this opportunity?
That's a really good question. And I think it has a very clear answer. It's an answer that, like, a lot of people might not be completely receptive to it at this point, but I think that the reality of it is going to come around for them eventually. And it's this: every single human being on planet Earth is an entrepreneur. If you are an employee, you are an entrepreneur with one client. That might be really hard for people to accept, but it's really the case. We are all playing on the same economic landscape. We are all trying to convince other people of our value and to pay us for that value. An employee simply says, well, I'm going to go find a very, very large customer and I'm going to sell my value to them in a contractual relationship where they agree to pay me, for long term. But the reality stands that if you do something, that company, well, first of all, if that company, just, hey, things aren't working out so well for them, their revenue gets cut. Well, they got to cut expenses. You might get cut, right? You might wake up one day, they just decide, you know what, I don't like you very much. And then boom, you're cut. You're back on the streets. You're back to being an entrepreneur who's now has to go find another client. So to me, it's understanding the position that you're in. When you are employed by a company, you have one customer. And if that customer, and we all know, like we've heard the financial advice before in pretty much every capacity, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's a very, very risky position to be in. And so when you're an entrepreneur like I am, I'm selling not to one client, I'm selling to hundreds and even thousands of clients. My risk is spread out tremendously. Everybody wants to say that being an entrepreneur is so risky. To me, it's not. To me, it mitigates risk in a lot of ways. To me, telling a company, you're going to be my sole client, you're going to be my sole customer, that is very risky. Putting all of my eggs in their basket. I can't control the direction that company goes in. I'm just a small piece of that puzzle. And any given day, I could wake up and they could say, no, go find somebody else, right? And then I don't know if I can or not. I mean, hopefully you can, but there's a lot of people on unemployment. There's a lot of people out there struggling. There's a lot of people out there underemployed, right? So I want people to start thinking about this as having one client, being an employee, is a much riskier position than is told to them in the fairy tale of, the 15,000 hour public school system, which they've heard is like, look, just do this, just put your head down, just follow the books, turn in your homework, go to college, get a good job, and that's the life. Well, that's not the life anymore because the economy doesn't work in 2018 the way it worked in 1972. And unfortunately, the schools are still giving the same advice they were giving people in 1972. And now people are getting jobs. Number one, they're graduating with degrees and they can't find jobs, or they get a job and they don't keep it for 40 years and get a gold watch. They are out on the streets after 5 years looking for another company, trying to sell value to them. So I really, and now we're faced with the potential of building a business online where there's not a lot of risk. There's not a lot of overhead. There's not expensive leases. You can build something on the side right now. You don't even nobody's telling you, at least I'm not, to quit whatever you're doing and just put all your faith in the idea of building an online business. Nobody's saying that, not me. So what I'm telling people is, look, start to shift your mindset around this topic. Start to shift your mindset around the concept of being an entrepreneur because you already are one, even if you don't realize it, and start to dabble. Start to build a side hustle. You're building an asset here. And your goal is to see if you can get that asset to where it supports you and to where you are truly mitigating risk by having lots and lots and lots of clients. And so that's the process that I lead people to. Now, of course, there's people coming right out of college, or there's people in high school who are facing the decision of whether or not they should go to college. And if they're telling themselves, you know what, I don't really believe in this model. I see the opportunity for building an online business. I see the opportunity for scale there, for building a massive asset, for location independence and schedule independence and financial independence. I just want to go for that. I don't want to go the traditional route. I'm there for them too. So it doesn't matter if you're 16 or you're 66. When you're ready to dabble in this or you're ready to go full on with this online lifestyle business opportunity, I'm here for you.
In your effort to help people to build a successful online lifestyle business, what does your outline look like now?
So I actually have a very strategic kind of step-by-step process. So I lead something called Freedom Business Bootcamp. And it's a 12-part process for starting an online lifestyle business. But the very first thing that somebody needs is they need a big idea. Not just an idea. They need a big idea. And a big idea typically combines your passion, some area of passion, and some area of proficiency. Now, the good thing about building an online business is you actually don't need any proficiency. If you have the passion, there are angles that you can take where you can still build a legitimate, successful, sustainable, long-term online business just out of an area of passion. But if you do have proficiency, in my experience, you can do it a lot faster. So if we find an area where there's overlap between passion and proficiency, and then we verify profitability, you have your big idea. And then it's a matter of putting the pieces of the puzzle together in the right way so that you can get off to the races or get traction, so to speak, as quickly as possible. I don't lie to people and tell them that this is all easy and you just, click some buttons and suddenly people are throwing money at you. No, it is, building a business online or offline is a tough task. It is difficult, and it does really help to have guidance and somebody who has experience leading you through this process. And it is going to take work, and it is going to take focus, and it is going to take dedication. But the payoff is enormous. And when you look at, let's put ourselves in the shoes of somebody who is 17 and weighing their choices. And they're faced with the idea of taking 4 years out of their life and tens of thousands of dollars and putting it in the traditional model. You don't have to do anywhere near that to work on building an online business. We're talking about hundreds of dollars maybe. We're talking about by the end of a few months, you're going to know whether this thing has legs or not. So in my advice is, why wouldn't you at least give it a shot? Because people right now are just on faith. Like, sure, I'll blow 4 years of my life. Sure, I'll borrow tens of thousands of dollars that aren't bankruptable, like that I could potentially have as an albatross around my neck for, decades to come. So if they're going to make that decision, the decision to just at least give it a shot, if you have a big idea, at least give this online business thing a shot, it should be a no-brainer for people. But yeah, there is a specific process for doing it. You just have to have the big idea, and you got to make the decision that I'm gonna give this a shot.
You have 3 kids. I think they're 3 young kids. Like, what kind of things do you want to teach them? And given what you said, are you encouraging them or not encouraging them to go to a traditional 4-year college?
So they're kind of too young for us right now to talk about the college model. We're talking right now about the traditional school model. My oldest is in Montessori currently, and she sees the public school bus come. Her friend goes to public school, and so she's been asking. I personally am opposed to the public school environment, but I want my daughter, I have 3 daughters, I want all 3 of my daughters to work on making their own choices, work on assessing situations for themselves, not just listening to what I have to say. I'll give my input, especially if they ask me for my input. But I also understand that sometimes you just have to experience things. And so if my older daughter says, look, Dad, I don't want to go to the Montessori anymore. I want to go to public school with my friends. All right, we'll sign you up. We'll put you on the bus. You can go there. You can see what it's all about. I'm also going to help her navigate that environment and the things that come along with it. And I'm going to discuss with her what she's learning or not learning. We're going to talk about different opportunities. And there's a lot, because of what I do, because I'm not tied to a location or a schedule, and because we can travel all over the world, there's a lot of real world learning opportunities involved in that. So basically, my message to them is going to be that everything that you're doing, every choice that you make, is an opportunity for you to learn. If you don't go into it thinking a certain way, just be open to whatever happens here. I want to get the experience. I don't want to validate what I already thought to expect. I just want to go into this, and I want to keep an open mind. And if bad things are happening in this environment, maybe it's a time for me to decide, this environment is not for me. I'm going to put myself in a different environment. That's the kind of analysis that I want them to have. And I also want them to have some resilience involved where I'm kind of taking a step back from the decisions that they make and the consequences of those decisions. And, if something's about to really, really go wrong, maybe I'll step in. But if it's just minor stuff that they're going to have to deal with, well, they're going to have to deal with it. Like I want them to experience the downsides of a lot of these decisions so that they can learn, number one, we all survive it, right? It's not none of it is the end of the road. Like it's my job to make sure that none of the things that they're about to experience are in fact the end of the road. But if it's not the end of the road, then let them experience it and let them grow from that and let them make their own decisions and come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, we want to empower our kids with that eagerness for learning and experiencing different things and having grit, like you said, whether you succeed or fail. That's all part of the process.
Yeah, and I think too with entrepreneurship, if somebody they don't feel naturally entrepreneurial, again, I already made the case that I think every single person is an entrepreneur. It can certainly be fostered at a young age where when my daughter starts asking for things that she wants to purchase, it's a matter of me just explaining, okay, well, that costs money. And I'm not just going to buy all of these things for you. I'll buy the things that you absolutely need. But if you continue to want and want and want, how are you going to go about acquiring this money? What kind of ideas can you come up with? And how are you going to execute on those ideas? And I believe that when kids are given that opportunity and they're kind of, helped along, of course, nobody's doing anything for them, but just facilitating this process. When they succeed in doing that, it is extremely empowering for them. And they start to realize, I don't have to rely on other people. I myself am capable of accomplishing this. I myself am capable of acquiring valuable resources. And that kind of really changes the game for you. In terms of as you grow and decide, do I want to go work for somebody else or do I really want to build something of my own?
Kevin, are there other online entrepreneurs that you have learned from that you could get shortcuts from and learn from their mistakes? Or is it largely that you're self-taught?
I would say I'm largely self-taught. I mean, when I was running the brick and mortar business and before I had kids, so my first daughter was born in 2012, obviously started the business in 2008. And the nature of that business, which, a lot of people hate me for this, but, I say I don't like to be tied to a schedule. Even though I was tied to a schedule with that business, it was really like a 5-hour schedule. That's when our classes were open. And outside of that, I could really do whatever I wanted to. And I was an extremely voracious reader, reading, probably 4 or 5 books a month on business and marketing and just digesting like a sponge as much as I absolutely could. That's where a lot of my quote unquote education in terms of business came from. I mean, I went to public school from the beginning to graduation, right? I don't remember them teaching anything that had to do with being an entrepreneur, with running a business, with understanding money. I don't really, nothing. Nothing stands out as like, well, that really helped me in terms of what I really wanted to do with my life in building these businesses. So it was really the books. It was going to the library. It was going to the bookstore, purchasing all of these books, renting books, going online to learn. That was really where my education around business and customer service and PR and marketing and sales, all of that came from those years of self-study.
What are some of your favorites? What are some highlights?
Well, The Ultimate Sales Machine is one that I remember, really had an impact for me. A lot of the traditional ones, of course, and today I don't consume much at all because I'm busy building. Like that was I consider that like a consumption era for me. And these days, it's all about what I'm putting out into the world. And I think you start naturally with consumption. And then you start to put things into practice. And as you put things into practice, you start to develop your own ideas. At least I do. And so I've put my own twist on a lot of things. I've discovered a lot of things. So there's not a lot of people building online lifestyle businesses. There's a lot of people doing the startup thing. There's of course, a gang of people doing brick and mortar businesses. The online lifestyle business is relatively new, I would say. And so I think there's a lot of ideas within that need to be developed. And throughout my experience in building these online lifestyle businesses, I've come up with a lot of ideas and concepts. And I'm not saying they're completely unique or anything like that. Of course, they come from other things that I've learned from other people, but they're valuable nonetheless. And I take a little twist on something, and if that can really help somebody, I put that out into the world. And so right now, I did the consumption era. Now I'm in the era of content production and giving back and helping others.
That's great. In your experience, what are some of the mistakes and things that you learned along the way? And what are challenges that people should be aware of in terms of starting an online lifestyle business?
I think the biggest thing you have to be aware of going into it is just the level of resilience that you should have. Don't go into this thinking that everything is going to go right for you. Don't think that it's going to be it's smooth sailing. It's not going to be a straight line from A to B. There truly is tons and tons of ups and downs. There's going to be really stressful moments. There's going to be moments of pure elation where you knock something out of the park bigger than you ever thought was possible. But then 2 months later, you can go through one of those spells where it's like you feel totally down about where things are headed. And so you really have to have a resiliency in order to be successful. If you're the kind of person who throws in the towel at the first sign of struggle or the first obstacle, it's probably not for you, or at least you're probably not ready for it. I never tell people that, because you're not ready now, you'll never be ready. People change. People can change. People can become more resilient. Something can click. A situation can get so bad for them at their traditional job that they're like, F it. I'm going to buck up here and I am going to pursue this new thing because I am so sick of the status quo. That happens all the time. Right? So just a resiliency. If you have a resiliency, then you can win in building any type of business. So that is the main factor that I look for. And when I'm, getting new members into our 250K Society, which is our membership community for online lifestyle entrepreneurs, that's a main thing I look for. I ask about that. I want to know. I want to hear stories from people about how they were down and they came back, right? I want to know what obstacles that they've run into that they've overcome in their life. I want to know that resiliency is there, because if it's not there, I'm not going to have a long-term member. Like, they're going to run into their first obstacle. They're going to complain to me. They're going to cry. Then they're going to leave. And, that's not what this is all about. So resiliency, number one factor.
That's great. Can you share with us a success story? Somebody from your 250K Society, what they're doing and what they're growing.
So actually I have a student, her name is Laurel. She has a Facebook ads agency that she started very, very recently. And she just sent me a testimonial video this morning, in fact. And so I'm about to put it up on the website. People can go watch it if they want to. But she basically has a full-time job, and she's doing the side hustle thing, right? She's dabbling in this idea of building an online lifestyle business, potentially to leave her day job and do this full-time and scale this big asset and give herself the ultimate freedom. And so she signed up for the 250K Society a couple months ago. We do weekly masterminds inside the 250K Society. It was her turn, I think, like 3 weeks in to be in the hot seat. And so we did a hot seat call with her, gave her some adjustments to make. She implemented those adjustments. A week later, one of those adjustments was she had this idea for a program, and a program she was actually running that had a waiting list. She had sold out the first version of it. But when I heard about it, it was like, well, this This really needs to be two separate programs here. And so one of the adjustments she made is she split it up. She created a completely separate thing off of it, took everybody who was on the waiting list, started to sell it to them, started to offer it on. She kills it on Facebook Lives more than anybody I've ever seen. And she doubled her business and off that one call. So now making, she says in the video, that she added $4,000 a month in revenue just off this one mastermind hot seat that she was in 3 to 4 weeks after she joined the 250K Society. So huge win. She's just getting started, early stages still, doesn't even have a website. This is what she's able to accomplish. And so I think that is a fantastic win. I think it's an amazing story. And it just goes to show that you're not years and years and years away from this idea of achieving the ultimate freedom. You literally could be months away. I don't want to sell people, on some vision that's not possible for everybody, but it can be the case. It can be the case that it's a few months. For me, it took me, with that first health and fitness brand that I built, it took me 18 months to get to 6 figures in profit. But still, that's a very, very short amount of time, relatively speaking, right? And let's go back to the concept of 4 years of college, tens of thousands of dollars in debt, or this giant opportunity that is just sitting here. If you feel like you're ready to at least dabble in it, right? It is sitting there waiting for you.
Kevin, I'd like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
I define success very simply by the impact that I make in people's lives. I know that business success is going to come from the success that I have in making an impact in people's lives. It's just something that can't be ignored. When you are making a tremendous impact for people, they will shout about you from the rooftops. And people will take notice and people will flock to you. That is my only goal right now, is how big of an impact can I make in other people's lives? Because I know when that side of things is accomplished, not only am I going to feel amazing as a human being, but this whatever financial success that I'm after, that I'm trying to grow to, that's going to come naturally along with this impact that I'm making.
I love that. And it goes back to what you were saying about aligning your passion, purpose, and make a profit. So making an impact. So thank you for sharing how you're helping people to escape the rat race and your inspiring story. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can follow you and find more about you?
Yeah, you can find everything at sixfiguregrind.com. You just spell out the word six, S-I-X, sixfiguregrind.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? I like what Kevin had to say about health and fitness. While it's as simple as good diet and exercise, the root actually can go deeper. Stress related to job, money, unfulfillment in life. The money thing and fulfillment thing are the root causes of what's going wrong in a lot of people's lives. I like to think that good health has 4 pillars: physical, mental, spiritual, and financial. If you don't have all 4, your stool can tip over. It's all interconnected. Your happiness, fulfillment, money, physical fitness. Interesting things to think about while you're running on the treadmill, if that's where you happen to be listening right now. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, let me know by going to the Inspired Moneymakers group at inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. Let's continue the conversation there. In a shout out, I want to thank David for sharing his story in the Inspired Moneymakers group at Facebook. He called it Random Act of Kindness Alert. And I'm just going to read this real quick. This morning in the drive-thru at Dunkin' Donuts, I placed my normal Sunday morning order and was surprised when I was told that my order was already paid for by the car directly in front of me that had just left. Coincidence? I'd like to think that it was a fellow podcast listener who just listened to this week's episode with Rachel Cruz. Thank you, Andy, for making my day, either directly or indirectly. We passed on this act of kindness to the car behind us. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for listening, and thanks for making my day. So I'll take the opportunity to challenge you, if you're still listening to the very end right now, to pay it forward and do something generous even as small as paying for somebody's coffee. If you like Inspired Money, share that story or your favorite episode with a friend, family member, to whomever you think might be interested. I'd really appreciate it. The music you're listening to right now and all the other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Kimo West. And congrats to Kimo for his Grammy nomination. Aloha, Kimo. Have an inspired week. Do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.